Hi everyone. What? I'm alive? Yeah, sorry. I know it's been a while. Listen, let me start us off with just a little background on what we're doing here today, and then I'll get into my update. Those from the present may know this as my first go back at it in, years, but for posterity this marks the beginning of a devlog for a Dune 2000 mod. You guys like the old RTS games? Command & Conquer stuff. Westwood and Intelligent Games also whipped up some stuff in the Dune universe. I mentioned I was doing a campaign for it back in the Terramus kiting vid. That's complete now, and I've got some new stuff in the works, which this is a part of. See, I had a dream one time that we had this pretty new tile set to play around on. Towering crystalline mountains, shale plateaus, vast salt spots, on a world submerged in some corrosive chemical mists. I mentioned the concept offhandedly to my sister, who you may recall has kindly done up some art for my channel, and she was like, "You want me to draw that?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, sister." So she did. What you're seeing on screen at the moment is some footage from the completed tile set. It's actually insane how much effort it was, though. I posted a thread in the description of this video containing information about the process behind the art itself, and with some more info about the direction of this mod. If you enjoy art and the inner workings of a development process, feel free to stop by. The mission on screen is also playable, so I hope you have fun if you enjoy RTS games and give it a peek. Hell, maybe I should give it a go myself at some part of this series, at some point. Anyway, there are also some new units around, things that are not normally in Dune 2000. Their sprite sets are rough around the edges, so my goal at the moment is tidying them up. That's what you're seeing now, messing around in GIMP 2.0 and moving erroneous pixels around. The magenta in the background will appear fully transparent in-game. That pure black is their shadow, and the various shades of gray will be interpreted as faction coloration. If you're playing on pink team, then the unit will have pink in place of its gray. This is kind of a tedious process, but it's important to get the best results. I'm not an artist like my sister, but this much I can manage. That's the gist of it. Now I'll give y'all an update on what I've been up to. I've said before that I've got this thing going on with tactile dysfunction, yeah? Brain doesn't process my sense of touch correctly, so stuff's painful for no reason. Well, it's pretty intrusive. It can't really be helped if it flares up in the middle of the day, forces me to bed, and I succumb to sleep and then my cycle's all turned around. And it wasn't always this bad, so, I used to have my ducks in a row, but nowadays I can't feasibly keep a schedule. So instead, I learn to live by routines. Whether it's 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. that I get up, whipping up a good first meal and setting goals for the day or night is how I move forward. I've thought about this hobby quite frequently since stopping, but I had to stop for a while so I could relearn the basics. I mean, I had to relearn to live, get back to just taking care of myself, shake some bad habits, adopt some good new ones, improve my self-discipline. A messy home is a messy mind. It must be addressed, and I have addressed it, substantially. I told myself that I couldn't go back until I picked myself up again, not merely for a time, but fundamentally. I had to change, so I did. It's a pretty embarrassing situation for any red-blooded man, I think. I feel compelled to give you all the down low after being gone so long, though. I feel I owe it to all the folks, all the friends who enjoy what I do, because you all who have been cheering me on in the interim have inspired me to change and do better. I sincerely appreciate your encouragement. I'm a black belt, in the Subak-do Murakwan discipline. You're not supposed to stop after hitting black belt. It's midnight blue in this discipline. Black is like an ending, like how it ends the spectrum of light. Midnight blue represents more fluid concepts. I'd like to return to training that too someday. First came this, after many small steps and the support and encouragement of friends and family, and I'm very grateful for all of it. Despair is so often a detrimental emotion, and succumbing to it is the easiest route because it's so impractical. If you wish that things were easier, you frame the circumstances as being outside your control. Some aspects of them may be, but it's more productive to wish instead, or try rather, to be stronger. This issue of mine is not quite physical and not quite mental. There's nothing wrong with my body, and when properly rested, I tend to more often be able to think straight, because for a time, the pain subsides to an extent. Even innocuous substances make it worse, so the only solution I've found thus far has been in changing my attitude. And miscellaneous other things. Like I said, routine over schedule. I found myself obsessing before I stopped about being around at certain times and premiering and being around with y'all. You may have noticed some funny video timestamps, like how the Darkshore Mythic vid is exactly 4 hours and 20 minutes, or Nax is exactly 2 hours. I don't think I have OCD. I do feel certain compulsions, though, and I shouldn't self-sabotage. So I think what I'll do is be more arbitrary about uploading. I think that'll help me be more consistent overall, even as I continue to improve what I can in my day-to-day. Alright, sorry, I guess I went on for a while. Look, I know everybody's got their problems, and I don't mean to say, oh, woe is me. I'm only clarifying what I've been up to, that's all. Oh, but I guess I should answer the question of WoW while I'm here. Yeah, I've been playing, very casually. Ready Layer 1 accomplished its goals in Wrath, took down the Lich King. I was put in the position of Warlock halfway through TBC and stayed that way through Wrath. I've still got some Hunter footage from the time. TBC is swinging around again, isn't it? I don't know, maybe I'll make some episodes of that old footage. I don't imagine I remember enough to provide particularly insightful commentary, though. But it might be fun. After Wrath, some remnants of my guild stuck around to form a 10-man team. We're a real gaggle of goobers, but I love my friends, and we have fun. Although, I would have retired from raiding myself around that time, but you see, actually, I was ready to quit around the time of the Blitzchung incident. Do y'all remember that? I had a lot of friends who were looking forward to raiding with me again, like guildies from back in the days of Nostalrius. And I loved them, and so I obliged them. Not that I didn't have fun making a classic WoW series or anything, I like this game a lot. It's got a special place in my heart. And there are lots of good games in bad hands nowadays. It was also, you know, given how I'm kinda unable to move around too much, it was an opportunity to stay connected with people, and I viewed that as important to staying afloat in life. Same with this hobby. It's just as much about connecting with y'all as it is about exploring interesting stories or simply having fun together. I think all this helped me evaluate my situation in a healthy way and take positive steps. I still consider it important, but I've got some stronger connections close to home now. That'd be why I stuck around after Wrath, actually. My sister's a pretty unlucky soul too, you see, and very antisocial. But we have a strong bond, and I'd been trying to coax her into coming out of her shell and joining me on the raid team. I figured it'd be good for us both. You know, we start a tradition of hanging out every week for raid, and more importantly for her, expanding her circle of friends and interacting with more people. She made a character during... heck, I don't even remember. It might have been during the end of Vanilla, it might have been sometime during TBC, but it turned out that one of her raid slots opened up for a mage back in World of War. She's also quite fond of hunters, and was maining one, but I had gifted her with a boost some time ago, which wound up being used for a mage. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was during TBC. She's really into the collection aspects of the game. All the companion pets, all the mounts, and she was looking forward to battle pets being a thing in Mob Classic, which she's enjoying nowadays. And mages are insanely convenient for farming gold, getting around the world during world events, other stuff like that. So when that raid spot opened up, I knew, this is it. She had been pretty casual up to that point, leveling slower than I did, messing around in general, maybe occasionally farming some materials for me or the guild, but we rushed her up to level 80, learned some basics about raiding, we got her into the game, and then she wanted to keep going in Cataclysm because she'd only been around for World of War and Icecrown Citadel, and we had lots of fun together. So she's the reason I'm still playing. I'm so proud of her. I think she's grown a lot too. But yeah, I don't think I'll be doing more WoW series. I'm just messing around on a druid nowadays, and I'm even crappier at the game. Might be fun to review some old footage at some point. Like I said though, there are lots of good games in bad hands nowadays. Did you hear that Halo Combat Evolved is getting some kind of official redo? They really have their work cut out for them if they hope to match Ruby's rebalance in quality. Speaking of which, if y'all haven't noticed, I'm quite fond of mods and all the sorts of creative ways players have given back to games they cherish. That's why I look at custom stories in Amnesia, or why I admire mods like Ruby's, or why I do my own mods for this or that. They're nuggets of passion that players felt, made tangible through their labors of love. And passion colors everything. Modders feel kinda like the indie game devs of old to me. Where do the likes of Dune come from before it blew up? Is it any less impressive after aging so long? That's why it's worthwhile to pay mind to the efforts of small creators. In light of that news about the Halo CE revamp, I'd love to give Ruby's Edition a run in CE. He had a whole thesis on his design philosophy, and clearly understood Bungie's vision. which enabled him to make something magnificent by building respectfully atop a foundation he understood. That's for some other vid though. For now, I guess I'd better talk a bit about this unit we're looking at, and then we can wrap this up for now. From what I understand, the sprite artist who did this vehicle up is Volcanomonkey. He stopped by the Landsrod Discord server for Dune 2000, generously provided this sprite set, and I'm not sure we've seen him since, but shout out to you, brother. Dune 2000 sprites were a serious pain to work with until rather recently. We had to overwrite existing sprites, which used their own 256 color palettes for each set, and any unit not adhering strictly to one of those palettes would get all its colors screwed up. This sprite set had some errors at a baseline, but I've dealt with much worse. Like, have a look at this flame tank sprite. Faction color splattered on the treads, which was inconsistent between frames by the way. The windshield on front is supposed to be cyan. There are odd pixels all over the place, and it's impossible to see in the still image, but there are even some shadow pixels in the middle of the vehicle. This is what the touched-up vehicle looks like. The mod this vehicle was from, Dune 2000 Hardcore, had a perfectly intact sprite set, but for the life of me, we just couldn't get the assets sorted in a clean way at the time. So it went through the process of palette conversion in order to be used elsewhere, and I took some creative liberties where certain colors no longer existed, like stylizing the cockpit window as being tinted with the faction's color. We got some more info on that mod's creators and the artists involved since then, and I've even tidied up the sprites for some unused units made for that mod, thanks to files So Bad to Life gave me. Volcanomonkey didn't bestow a name upon this vehicle, but I called it Seravan, meaning shroud. Not only for its gargantuan frame, which casts a long shadow over the battlefield, but also for the fancy electronic countermeasures it has for misdirecting homing projectiles. A new feature for D2K of my own design, built off the framework Klofkak generously laid out for us. This follows the naming scheme of the new faction the unit belongs to, which is based on, or corruptions of various Greek words. There's more info about that in the related thread. Although I've got to zoom in to get the pixels in the right place, it takes some good references at regular zoom to understand what I'm looking at in the first place. Gotta look at adjacent frames too, very easy to overwrite certain patterns that look like gibberish up close, but whoopsie daisies, those were actually the treads, and I've got to revert to backups of those prior frames, or partial backups at least. Not all units operate off this pink, black, and shades of grey kind of interpretation. What the game sees as transparency or whatever is defined by the position of the color in the palette. The first two are full transparency and shadows respectively, while the last 16 colors are faction colors. Brightest is always on the right, darkest is always on the left. Even if you were to flip those colors horizontally, the game would still decide that the brightest faction color belongs on the right. Unless you go messing with the faction colors too, but yeah, at a baseline that's how it works. For this unit, I tried to pattern the faction color on the sides of the barrel similarly to whatever that dark blue decor is. Dark, light, dark. Ditto for the color just before the guns, but the faction color and weird blue decor stuff on top is consistently light in the top left and dark in the bottom right. That suggests bulbous decor on top of the vehicle. The shadow of a barrel can't be too big. Light can pour in easily under the guns. The base can cast shadows, but since it sits atop a vehicle, it will obscure vehicle details. Even for a Titanic vehicle like this, the turret's base was only given a tiny shadow. This gives the impression that it's affixed tightly to the top, doesn't tower taller than the body does, and makes it less noticeable when the turret pivots over the edge of the vehicle. It makes it harder for the shadow to go that far too. The vehicle already casts a shadow on the terrain, it's best that that's left up to the body. Here's a full rotation of the original sprite set, and then a full rotation of the polished one. This looks better, I hope. I still have some work to do on the body. There are artifacts on the rear of the treads, but it's mostly polished by now. I like to reference comparable existing vehicles when doing up shadows to keep things stylistically consistent. They do have to change a bit depending on the details on the vehicle, however, that might be easier to see on another vehicle in a future devlog. This vehicle is exceptional among the roster of units in the new faction I'm giving it to. Their light vehicles are heavier than other factions, their tanks are lighter but use shielding systems, and then you've got this hulking thing with the most HP of anything in the game at this time, short of sandworms of course. We recently got a fancy new railgun weapon behavior that might go nicely on this thing. I was thinking a railgun tank would be nice on their rival faction, who they've been in an arms race with for the last 10,000 years? Since the Butlerian Jihad ended, and they had a past encounter with the Spacing Guild prior to the campaigns I've planned for the new tile set, so the traditional treaded body of this tank could have taken inspiration and universe from a number of places. Who are this new faction exactly? I call them the Order of Aether Knights. This planet is described as appearing quite similar to a gas giant from orbit, where its higher regions, its Aetherlands, are totally livable with water and everything. So these guys settled here for reasons, and for reasons have developed an extremely isolationist and protectionist culture. If you're familiar with Dune lore, you know no sane faction picks a fight with the Spacing Guild. You're cut off from the entire known universe that way. These guys don't care. For all intents and purposes, they see this world as their place. So the guild swung by, said hello, and got told to bugger off. Why are they back then if they can just leave this faction isolated on this world wherever they are? Basically, Dune 2000 happened, Emperor Karina lost Arrakis to one of his rivals, and now the Sardaukar owe a spice debt to the guild that they cannot repay. So the guild are like, go fight these guys for us, because only this whole planet's weight and resources can pay off the disruptions your Emperor's dumb gambit caused in spice production. At least, that's the official story. They might foresee some other shenaniganery with their prescience and seek to conquer this world with a force they can coerce, only for it to inevitably bite them in the butt. It wouldn't be the first time. Paul Atreides, right? It's imperfect prescience crap, not like a prophecy or anything, and there are other motivating factors besides foresight of Zizan. Prophecies. I usually hate them as a plot device. Either they're there to spoil the ending and your heroes are guided by the unerring hand of fate, or they're there to be totally wrong and nudge characters along the path in some artificial way, either to attempt to fulfill the prophecy or to keep it from happening, and there are other ways to motivate characters. Stories have a life of their own, and because this prescient stuff is in the Spacing Guild's wheelhouse, I have to account for it in the story somehow. I don't focus on it, though. They don't have their own campaign planned. Instead, we start off following the demoralized Sardaukar, who lost their Emperor, and have been effectively enslaved by the Spacing Guild, and thematically it lets me approach their campaign from the perspective of trying to find purpose when all is lost, and they're swept along in undesirable directions by forces outside their control. Maybe that's a bit of a projection of my own situation. You know what they say, right? Would you know? So, yeah, we're following the Sardaukar as they're meeting this new faction for the first time, and discovering that the guild, who is backing them in this conflict with stuff like drop pods and orbital artillery, has met these guys before. So their impression is that they're kind of being used to exact vengeance on behalf of the guild. It probably doesn't feel too good. And yeah, I know the guild isn't exactly allowed to fight or whatever. Great convention, blah blah blah. Look, if Westwood and Intelligent Games can slap a laser cannon on a shielded hover tank over an Emperor battle for Dune, I can give a guild Highliner orbital artillery and make it big enough of a setting to facilitate large-scale, base versus base macro missions for fun. The rule of cool supersedes all. So long as things are internally consistent, we take a few creative liberties and have some fun, okay? Anyway, this update has gone on for quite a while. I'm not sure how other devlogs in the series are going to go, but I hope this has answered all your questions satisfactorily. Listen, I'm often hanging around my Discord server, also linked in the description, so feel free to drop by sometime. We've got a pretty chill group chat over there. It's a fine place to hang out between episodes. No pressure though. I'll catch you next time if not. As the timing of this vid may indicate, this represents a commitment for the coming year. New Year's resolution and all that. I hope you all feel as inspired as I do. Have a Merry Christmas, if you celebrate, and make your own New Year's resolution a good one. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.